I haven't always been the best brother. Not that I didn't love Nathan, I did. But we were never close after we got into high school, and by the time I hit 30 and lived on the other side of the country, he'd become someone I'd call at Christmas and birthdays and awkwardly chat with for 10 minutes before one of us decided to let the other one off the hook. That changed a couple of years ago. He started calling me more regularly, and it got less weird. After a few weeks, he started opening up more, telling me more about his life, his plans, and things that were worrying him. The biggest was his health. He'd started feeling tired all the time, even though he was eating the same and made sure to get enough sleep once the fatigue started. I joked with him at first that he was just getting old, and he laughed. But I could tell he was still worried. He eventually went and got checked out by a doctor, but they said he was fine other than being a bit dehydrated. They gave him some low-grade sleeping pills to help his sleep, be more restful, and suggested he try yoga of all things. To his credit, he tried all that and more, but he just kept getting worse. By early last year, I could tell he was near the end of his rope, and I offered to come out to visit him. He was resistant at first, but eventually he let me fly out for the weekend. When he picked me up from the airport, I couldn't hide my shock. He was only 35, but he looked like an old man. His hair was patchy and grey, and his skin was loose and sallow. I'd seen photos of him from his 33rd birthday, and he looked strong and healthy. Riding back to his house, I could see the skeletal ridges of his hands and tiny wrists as he feebly gripped the steering wheel like a life preserver through every stop, start and turn. When I asked him what was wrong, what he was hiding from me, he just shrugged and shook his head. Doctors still say I'm fine, other than being dehydrated and underweight. They claim I'm exercising too much. But Don, I swear I'm not. I haven't been to a gym in over a year. He gave me a dry laugh. Too tired. I just stared at him. Nate, this isn't exercising too much. You need to see a different doctor. Not trying to be mean, but you look really bad. Like you've aged a lot. When he glanced over at me, there were tears in his eyes. I know, of course I know, but I've seen 5 doctors, and they all say they can't find anything wrong. When I point out how I look, they just shrug it off, say I'm probably putting my body under too much strain with my exercise regime. He snorted. One of them actually suggested all I needed was a vacation and some hair dye. I frowned at him. Are you not drinking enough? I mean, that can mess you up, right? And they say you're dehydrated. He shrugged as he grabbed a sports bottle from between the seats and took a huge gulp. A year ago, I started drinking 100 ounces of water a day. Now I'm up to 200. Nothing helps. Can you think of anything else that could be causing it? Nathan hesitated then. He seemed about to say something more, but then he thought better of it and shook his head. No, nothing that makes sense. I didn't push it then, and when I did push it on the way back to the airport 2 days later, Nathan resisted. Told me he appreciated my concern and the visit, but it was just something he was going to have to power through. When he waved me goodbye, there was a sadness and fear in his face that almost made me go back and force him to tell me what he was thinking, what he wasn't telling me. But even then, we weren't close enough that I was comfortable doing that. I told myself that he had a right to his privacy, and the best thing I could do was be supportive. I kept talking to him regularly, up until the time he was found dead in his yard 2 months ago. We were told that the cause of death was cardiac arrest, brought on by extreme exhaustion and dehydration. A few weeks later, when I was helping my parents sort through Nate's stuff, I found a letter he'd written to me back weeks before he died, but never sent. I considered showing it to my mom, but decided it would just upset her worse if she knew his mind was going well before he died. When I got home, I read it again, hoping it would make more sense than it had the first couple of times I read it. It said, 2 years ago, I was lost, driving back from visiting the parents of the girl I was dating at the time. I saw a woman walking on the side of the road and pulled up to her, rolled down the window and asked which way it was to the highway. She was a beautiful woman. She smiled at me and asked if she could have a ride. I almost said yes, just because of how she looked, but then I hesitated. How did I know she wasn't dangerous? Being a hot woman didn't mean she couldn't hurt or kill me. I tried to ignore her question and asked again if she knew which way it was to the highway. Smiling wider, she asked again if I would give her a ride. Part of it was because I figured she was saying she'd tell me where to go if I gave her a ride. Part of it was because I thought she was flirting with me. And despite my fears and dating Patricia, I was powerfully attracted to her. I didn't want to be that guy, but that didn't stop me from wondering what might happen if I let her into my car. So I told her yes. I told her yes and turned to unlock the doors. And when I turned back, she was gone. It kind of freaked me out at the time. I even got out and looked around for her, which was stupid, but it didn't matter. I didn't find her or anyone else. After a circle of the car, I got back in and drove on, eventually finding a sign that led me to the highway and on home. The nightmares started that night. Dreams of running down lonely midnight roads and misty swamps, a weight across my back. Something cold and hard lay across my tongue, tugging me this way and that as we wove between black cypress trees, wet mud splashing against my legs. When I would start to slow or tire, a sharp heel would jab me in the ribs, spurring me forward as a warm breath leaned forward and whispered curses into my ear. The voice tells me that I'm cursed and I must keep running, that if I stop, the curse will catch me and swallow me whole. I know how that all works, but I've had variations of the dream for nearly 2 years now. I don't tell the doctors because what good would it do? I could bring them pictures of the times I wake up with dirt or grass covering my legs and feet, but they would only say I'm sleepwalking. Or worse, that I'm lying for attention or have a mental problem. I've wanted to tell you, brother, but I've been afraid it'd drive you away when we're finally getting close again. None of that matters anymore. I can feel time tightening around me like a noose. It'll be over soon, and I don't want any of you around when the lady starts looking for a new nightmare to ride. The more I think about it, I'm better off to not send this at all. I can mean it as a warning, but if it just brings you back to help your poor, crazy brother, how am I protecting you at all? No, I'll just keep acting as normal as I can, and when it's done, when I'm gone, I'll know she'll be gone too. If you find this letter later, just know that I'm sorry for not being more honest. And maybe I am crazy after all. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? But I somehow don't think I am. I think she's real. The writing is real. And if I'm right, you just need to stay away. Stay away and be careful. Love you, little brother. The nightmares started for me that same night. At first, I assumed it was just the power of suggestion, my mind trying to make sense of my grief and the strange story I'd found in the letter by blending it all together and forcing me to drink it night after night. Except it was night after night. For 7 weeks, I've had similar bad dreams of being ridden almost every night, and each day I wake up sweating and afraid and exhausted. The fatigue has been growing worse. At first, I could beat it back with coffee and a nap on my lunch break. But for the last couple of weeks, I've been like a zombie. My joints ache, my muscles are sore, and I have trouble focusing on anything for more than a few minutes. I've been seriously considering going to a doctor and trying to decide how much to tell them when I go. I didn't think I was sick, and I didn't believe some witch was riding me around at night, of course. But something was going on, and I needed answers. As it turned out, the doctor I went to first was my dentist. My jaw had been hurting more in the last week, but when I woke up yesterday, my teeth were painful on both sides. I had to pay extra to get in quick, but I didn't mind. I wanted to fix something, even if it was just stopping my mouth from hurting. The dentist was an older man with a fringe of white hair and tight little silver spectacles that bound on his nose as he looked at my teeth and gums with a pick and mirror. Frowning slightly, he finally leaned back and hit the button to bring my chair back upright. "Have you noticed you grinding your teeth a lot in your sleep?" I shrugged. "I mean, maybe. I've been having a lot of bad dreams lately, so maybe I do it without knowing." "I see. Do you wear a mouth guard or anything else in your mouth when you sleep?" I raised an eyebrow. "No. Do you think I should?" He studied me for a moment. Maybe, but you're not sure you don't sleep with something in your mouth? Or have something you repetitively chew on during the day, maybe? Don't be embarrassed if you do. People chew on all kinds of stuff." I shook my head slowly. "No, I really don't. Why, what are you getting at?" The dentist puffed out a breath and folded his arms. "Normally, when someone is grinding their teeth at night, the wear and tear is going to look one of several ways depending on the shape of their teeth, the shape of their mouth and jaw, and how they're grinding it all together. But yours, you do have spots where I see abnormal wear, but not like I'd expect from you grinding your teeth. It reminds me of..." He gave a laugh and stopped himself, shaking his head. "What?" I could feel myself growing irritated and nervous. "It reminds you of what?" Looking more serious, he gave a slight nod. "It's silly, but okay. My father was a vet and a horse breeder. For a long time, I thought I was going to be a vet too, and growing up, I helped my dad a lot with our animals and those that came to him for treatment. One of the things that we saw a lot was called bit wear." My heart was pounding now. "What's that?" "Well, you know when you ride a horse, a lot of times they have a metal bit in their mouth to help control them. It sounds bad maybe, but it's not a cruel thing if the bit is worn and used properly. Still, over time, the metal of the bit will wear away at the teeth where it sits and rubs, creates a little bevel on both sides where it hits the teeth the most." He smiled. "Now our mouths are different than a horse's mouth, but if I didn't know better, I'd say what I was seeing in your mouth was bit wear. It's the same area on both sides of your mouth, both top and bottom, like you've been biting down on a bit." I tried to swallow. That's so weird." He started jotting a note down. "Well, I'll get you fitted with a night mouth guard. That'll probably fix it up." Glancing back up at me, he chuckled. "And if someone is riding you, tell them you need a break from time to time." I felt my skin grow cold as I offered him a weak smile. "I'll try, but I don't think she'll listen."